I'm Lily Walla. I'm the founder and CEO of Auggie, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's conversation on navigating safer, cleaner products for motherhood, whether you're pregnant, which I am, postpartum, or parenting littles, which I also am. You've probably noticed how tricky it can be to decipher what's safe and what's just smart marketing. So this event is here to cut through the noise. We're diving into the science, the standards, and the small steps you can take to reduce your exposure to harmful ingredients and make informed decisions that support your family's health. I'm so excited to have these three women, mostly because I really need to learn from you myself. So I will kick it first, Lanning, if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll come to you, Jenna, and then you, Carmen.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. Excited to chat with the Auggie community today. My name is Lanning Ardente. I'm the founder and CEO of Surette. We've created the first product standard for motherhood. So we vet product formulations and materials for safety so that brands can credibly connect with moms and moms can easily identify trusted products through our seal of approval without any of the confusion or frustration in navigating consumer products. Before launching Surette, I spent over a decade in consumer product goods in food and beverage. I'm a mom to two little ones. My daughter's 4 and my son just turned 2, so it's absolutely chaotic at our house. And both, professionally and my personal experience really opened my eyes to how unregulated and confusing this space is to really understand which products are genuinely a safer choice. What we're surrounding ourselves with in our home and putting in and on our bodies. And one swap that I wish the consumer and every parent knew is really around this black box fragrance, perfume, natural flavors, ingredients. These ingredients you see on the back of labels, unfortunately can hide like over, upwards of 200 ingredients in that one single word. And, a lot of these ingredients that are in those fragrance black box terms can be super dangerous. So that would be one swap that I would just try to avoid.
Well, yeah, when the first time we connected and you told me that and we talked about a certain deodorant brand, that blew my mind because that is it made me feel tricked, honestly. And so I'm excited to get into that more. Hi, Jenna. Oh, wait, you're muted.
Trying to be quiet while I'm listening. Hi. So yes, I'm Jenna Levine, founder and formulator of Linnae Botanicals. We are coming up to 9 years of serving skin. And I got into this business sort of by accident. Really, it's just been a lifelong interest and passion in plant medicine. I started making skincare in my parents' kitchen when I was 10 years old. And throughout my education and career, studied botany, herbal medicine, was a farmer, chef, always just working with plants, and really fascinated with this concept of ethnobotany, how humans and plants have kind of coexisted together. And so that's really kind of the kind of core MO of Linnae is really celebrating that we have had these thousands of years of coevolution. And so our bodies really identify the unique and complex molecular structures of plants, which allow plant medicine to be both really potent and also really bioavailable and potentially gentle. And I say potentially because one of the really most important key elements of Linnae is all about sourcing. And I always talk about how you can absolutely compare apples to apples. And there's kind of like a beauty in synthetic ingredients, in that there's so much standardization. There's no real not a ton of variability. Sure, there's variability in quality and sourcing of certain things, but when something's so refined, you kind of get down to this kind of singular isolated essence, with naturals, there's so much variability. And that's like both the challenge and joy of working with naturals. It's these really kind of living, beautiful things. And so we kind of have been just so grateful to be included in the pregnancy space. And I'm so grateful for organizations like Surrett that not only provide a marketplace, but also really help brands like us cut through the clutter with regulation and really understand how to best serve our guests. And one of the products that really stands out from our line, it's our best seller, but also a product I always really love to talk to moms about, because we obviously, some of us can take, a really long time to get pregnant. We don't want to necessarily, limit ourselves in our skincare routine, the things that make us feel really good. And so a lot of women find us because they want a retinol alternative. I think maybe later we can talk more about vitamin A and retinols in particular, but Renew Serum is that product that absolutely does wonders for the skin and is safe during conception, pregnancy, breastfeeding. And then the cool thing is that people find once they switch to Renew and Linea in general, that they don't miss their more harsh products. So they get the results that they're looking for. And that's what we like to deliver.
I'm literally like emailing myself to order that now. So thank
We're having a sale. It's our 9th anniversary sale.
Great, I'm there.
Now
Hi,
it's time. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to learn more from you all.
Hi, Carmen.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. It's wonderful to be part of this event. I'm Carmen Masterlian. I am a professor at Harvard University, where I study how the environment influences pregnancy and fertility and conception and men's fertility and women's fertility and child health across the continuum of reproductive life. I'm also the founder of a startup called V-Science, which essentially is an opportunity for me to translate decades of research into real life solutions to support couples on their journey to pregnancy by modifying all the factors in your environment that you have control over so that you can improve the odds of success, not just to get pregnant, but to have a healthy baby, which is the goal for everyone. And I've spent the greater part of my lifetime trying to understand all the factors in our environment that influence things like eggs and sperm, but also embryos and implantation, fertilization, pregnancy loss, pregnancy complications, birth weight, preterm birth, and then a whole spectrum of outcomes in children, including infections and allergies and asthma and autism and developmental delays, all the way up to things like menarche or first periods for a young girl to tempo of puberty for boys to age at menopause and the whole gamut. So I'm really excited to be here because I see this as an opportunity to translate science into the real world. I'm a scientist. I look at numbers and people on pages in data for a living. But one of the things that's been really lacking is taking that science and that evidence and really maximizing opportunity to influence real people's lives. And that's why I'm so excited to have partnered with Lanning at Surrett and with other companies that are really committed to improving the lives of women in the United States and abroad.
Thank you for the work that you're doing, for all of you. Honestly, I am so
I've got to tell you my swap because it was out of request that we had to say about it. So don't wear deodorant. I don't. There's no need. You smell beautiful. Your natural odors and the natural bacteria that you produce in your body are actually really good pheromones, and they're really attractants, and they can actually enhance your health and your how you feel about yourself and how your partner feels about you. So I'm a real believer in just natural scent is
I
really
get that in writing for my husband.
and no deodorant is such an easy one to get rid of. And we know through Lanning mentioned as well, the chemicals in deodorant and all of the personal care products that we're exposed to each and every single day are reproductive toxicants. They harm your fertility, they harm your child's health, they harm your health even decades away from now. So trying to limit your exposure should be a goal for everyone, no matter where you are on your journey, reproductive health journey.
Okay. Noted. And yeah, Jenna, I'm right there with you. I need that in writing for my husband. And it leads us in. And actually, before we really kick off, if anybody has questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. I know the chat. I know that this is overwhelming and we want to do the best possible job to break it down for you. So let's dive in. What does clean actually mean? I'm the sucker for like, oh, it says natural on the bottle and the marketing has green, so it must be safe. Clean is everywhere, but it's often unregulated and inconsistent, which Lanning, you're teaching me. So how do you define clean in your work and how can parents know what's actually safe? Carmen, I don't know if you want to kick this off.
Sure. So I don't like the word clean because nothing's actually purely clean. Let's be honest with ourselves. Even products, no chemicals, there could be in plastic containers. So nothing's pure and clean by virtue of just how we live and the industrialized world that we're exposed to. But there are safer and cleaner products, and you should always aim to go safer and cleaner wherever you can. So in my view, what's really important is that you always reduce your exposure no matter where you're at. So even if you like to wear the Chanel lipstick occasionally when you go out, don't use it every single day. Put less on, use it less frequently. There's ways of reducing exposure that matters and that is important. Now, there are products that have great, amazing opportunities to really know that it's been through a pipeline, through a scientific process that we can recommend as being safer. And I think that should be the goal, is that you're safer than what you would have been had you used traditional products. So clean, don't believe the labels. Definitely, you need to look at specifics. I think Surette does a really good job with the seal of approval that has been through a seal, so you don't yourself have to figure out what's right and what's wrong, because that becomes very burdensome. And we want to ease the purchasing for for women and ease the purchasing for men and couples and families. And so having that type of endorsement allows us to just have a consciousness that we have chosen something that we feel better about. And I think that should be the goal.
Okay, I hear that. Everything in moderation, including food and screen time, is what I'm learning from a few of our other experts this week. Lannon, do you want to get into greenwashing and industry claims that things are pregnancy safe and how to identify what the red flags are on a label? Because I think reading a label is the most intimidating part for me, and maybe it comes from almost like avoiding learning about it because I'm so scared to really almost like see what's behind the curtain.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think, looking specifically at the personal care category, it's really difficult for a consumer to thoroughly understand the ingredients that make up a personal care product that you would buy on the shelf at a store. It's drastically different than when you're picking up a bag of pretzels at Whole Foods and you really know, like, okay, it's wheat and salt, like those ingredients, it's easy to understand. But in personal care specifically, it can be really difficult to understand if it's a harmful ingredient or if it's a safer ingredient to include. So that's really kind of where these greenwashing terms come into play, is brands rely on them to communicate that their formulation is a cleaner, non-toxic, safer product, without the need, for the consumer to really flip over the ingredient label. But there are some great tools out there that you can use to help decipher which ingredients are potentially, hazardous. Like the scanning apps like a Yuka or EWG can be really helpful if you want to take the learning curve, if you have, the brain capacity to take that on. There are certain red flags to look out for sure. Like I mentioned, the fragrance, natural flavors, like just ditch those unless you're utilizing a platform like Surette, where we require brands to disclose 100% of that ingredient breakdown. Things like anything that ends in a paraben, avoid different phthalate ingredients like the BPTs and DEPs, etc. So, we do push a lot of content around what to look out for, any certain big red flags. But it is really overwhelming. It's a full-time job to really understand what these ingredients are, and learning through Carmen that once an ingredient is labeled as a bad ingredient, like BPA, for instance, everyone always looks out for BPA free, which is great that we know that that's a dangerous ingredient we should be avoiding. However, on the flip side, the chemical manufacturers know that consumers are flagging that, and then they create a carbon copy of that and just call it something else. So at Surrett, we are looking at the entire compound class of the chemicals rather than just this one specific ingredient, so that we can ensure that none of the copies will be coming through the formulations.
Yeah, and just like, I guess to add on to that, most of the people on this call in the community are busy. They're parents, they're going to their local Target or grocery store to just pick up something because they need it, they're out of something. Can we trust anything at these stores? Do they prioritize selling safer products? Or really should we, I mean, I know, Lanning, your answer is going to be always turn to a company like Surrett, but when that's not possible, can
Yeah, I mean, I think your a Whole Foods is going to be different than shopping in like a conventional grocery store. They have a no-go list. They're vetting ingredients. So that could be a difference of an experience, for instance, from a consumer standpoint. And then I would also turn to these tools that you can pull out of your, on your phone, the scanning apps, and then also different third-party seals. So like in food, it's the USDA organic, it's Whole30 approved, it's non-GMO project verified. In beauty, it could be, a clean label project. It could be the EWG verification. Eventually, you'll see Surrett on
Surrett.
shelf, but yes, those third parties can be really helpful at bringing that peace of mind.
Okay, and maybe what we'll do is in the follow-up DM include a few of those apps that you recommend for folks. Jenna, you're building a brand in the space, and I feel like you wear the weight of this responsibility on your shoulders. What's the criteria and the challenges for sourcing truly, and Carmen, I don't want to use the word clean, but truly clean ingredients? Oh, muted.
So here we go. Sorry.
Don't worry.
I thought I unmuted. So it's a really interesting challenge. And when I got started very early and I didn't come sort of to this to make skincare and then worked backwards to find clean ingredients. I wanted to work with plants and use the best quality plants to make skincare. So for me, it's not like, it wasn't so much about what ingredients we were going to put on our no-go list or synthetics that we would cut out, as much as these are the really special plants that I wanted to work with. And then I needed to find a supplier who, produced that with a lot of integrity. And that's kind of the really tricky thing too. And I'm very sensitive to talk about our approach, because our approach is totally psycho. And our products do carry a price that reflects all of that effort. And so that maybe isn't accessible to everyone. And I think there are a lot of really wonderful, appropriate alternatives out there. But the way we approached it was just doing an immense amount of research. And what I so often found, even as I was approaching suppliers with organic ingredients or ingredients of natural origin, that when I start asking about their farming practices, worker welfare, I mean, this is the kind of detail that we go into for each ingredient. We, want to know if they have, a regenerative farming philosophy, all of these things. We also really, really care about efficacy, because what I found out too is that a lot of these organic natural ingredients it's kind of a moot point, because they were so dilute with water. The way that they were extracted, I studied phytochemistry, I knew that they couldn't possibly have any real like bioavailability, any potency, any effect on the skin. And then they, beyond being diluted with water, then they were further diluted with glycerin. And glycerin and water aren't bad things. It's not what you're paying for. So it's so hard. There's so much greenwashing out there. And then the other sort of really tricky thing is that I think the statistic is something like you walk into a Sephora or a department store and 90% of the brands in there are made within the same 9 labs across the country. So something called white labeling is really, really common. And that's basically, I'm a celebrity. I think I know about skincare and I want to, go to some well-reputed lab, and I show up and say, I want to make, a formula, and they like give me formula A, B, and C, and then I add some trendy active and pile some fragrance in it, that like reminds me of my summer home in the south of France or whatever. And then you have a product that's pumped out to thousands of people with no idea about transparency around origin, about combining ingredients and for what the process is for creating these ingredients, the byproducts, and how these are released back into the environment. So it's really, this is all to say, it's really unfair to the consumer. And that's why it is so awesome to have companies like Surratt and all these other sort of regulating bodies that Lanning mentioned that help us along the way. But I think, it really comes down to also what Carmen's saying is that, here we are on one end of the spectrum, just because that's kind of the way we do things and my weird obsession. But there's so much between where you may be and that kind of extreme that is such a good step in the right direction. And so the most important thing is not perfection, is just like making one little step at a time. And when people come to us and are like, I want to, rehaul my entire lifestyle. I commend them for that, but that's a big undertaking, and it can be also very expensive. So even starting with one product at a time is awesome.
Yeah, I love that advice. And what I'm hearing is like, you cannot trust these marketers and these bigger industries to what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, advocate for you as a consumer. And so I think we all want to hear these like easy fixes or like just tell us what to buy, but in reality, like, you have to put in the work yourself and make it a priority to switch certain things. And then Carmen, which chemicals or ingredients should we be most mindful of? And let's start especially during pregnancy and postpartum, but then maybe over time, or maybe they're the same.
So I would actually start in the preconception period,
Right.
because information that's carried on the eggs and sperm are actually modified by these chemicals, which are called endocrine disrupting chemicals. But they're actually more than just endocrine disrupting. They're actually reprotoxicants. They modify your metabolism. They cause inflammation. They cause high risk of infection. They affect every organ in your body. And so just isolating it down to reproduction is not fair, because it causes systemic changes into your body. So the preconception period, which is the period that has the greatest influence on your child's health and how healthy your child is, it's like I said before, it's risk of infections, how many allergies it's going to have, developmental delays, all kinds of outcomes in your child are actually predicted by that preconception window. So we know that there's certain classes of chemicals that are really harmful in that preconception window that actually we've shown through studies I've conducted at Harvard myself and my colleagues have conducted that show that that period, the exposure in the male partner and the exposure in the female partner, and then the combined exposure, these are studies that I've done, have an impact on your child's health, on your pregnancy and on your child's health, on your risk of miscarriage, on your risk of preterm birth, on the size of your baby, on the chances of it having developmental delays, having asthma and allergies, metabolism, its risk for obesity, its age at menopause, its age at first period for a girl. So we really need to be extremely cautious for that preconception period, more so than the prenatal period or the pregnancy period. So the classes of chemicals that we have lots of data on, sufficient data on to say you should at all costs avoid them as much as possible. The first class are phthalates. Lanning has mentioned them. Phthalates are a very large class of chemicals that are produced in the millions of tons per year across the United States and across the globe. We are ubiquitously exposed to phthalates because they are virtually in every single product you're exposed to. There are places where we know they exist that we have control over. There are places where we know they exist that we have no control over. I'll give you examples. The first, you're buying your olive oil, okay, or you're eating butter, okay? We all eat butter and olive oil, most of us do. By the time that butter and olive oil, even if your olive oil is in a pretty glass jar from Crate and Barrel or from Williams and Sonoma and you paid $100 for it, it's still packed with phthalates, DEHP phthalates, or congeners or mimickers, like Lanning mentioned, copycat versions of those chemicals. Because in order for that product to end up in that beautiful bottle, I've got one on my shelf here that my sister gave me for Christmas. It needs to go through a whole bunch of manufacturing, okay? And that manufacturing includes PVC tubing. So tubing is how we get products into, like, to be made. And there's PVC tubing in every single step of every product you are buying, from your makeup to your food, to your butter, to even the meats and fruits and vegetables that you eat, not only because the containers are covered with phthalates, but also the meat and the chicken and the cows and the grazing of the land has water that's contaminated. So their tissue of that cow that you're now getting milk or butter from is contaminated with phthalates, just like our bodies are contaminated. So those are things we can't control. I don't want you to worry about them.
Okay, phew.
Do about it. I can't do anything about it. Okay. Even if you put your butter in a nice glass dish, it's still covered with phthalates because the paper that butter is in is the contact material, or the paper product that's in, has phthalates, has PFAS, has a whole host of chemicals that they're not covalently bond to the paper, and it enters into the food, and then you take your butter, you put it on your bread, and now you're eating it. So those groups of that source, we can't do much about. We can do something about personal care products, right? Because that's a choice that we have to put. You know, I've got my one little lipstick that I use, which is
We all need to know what brand this is.
this Burt's Bees. This is all I use. I don't use any makeup anymore. I used to use makeup. I've stopped using makeup. I've stopped using deodorant. I have like a small number, like 2 or 3 products in my bathroom, and that's it. Like literally 2 or 3 products, and that's all I use. And the reason why that is because I know that that's a major source of exposure. Now, if I want my body to go from the highest quartile of exposure, which many of us are, many people are in, if we look at the variability in a population, we take 100 people and we've done this, we've measured their urine and we've checked the levels in their urine of certain metabolites of chemicals like phthalates. Some people will be in the high exposure levels and some people will be in the low exposure levels. What we know is that people with more products, the more frequent use of products, the type of products, have higher exposures to these phthalate metabolites. People with fewer products have lower exposure in the lower category of exposure. And so if you're trying to get pregnant, you want to be in the bottom end of that continuum, because the couples and the individuals that we've studied that are in the highest end have a longer time to pregnancy, have male factor infertility, have a higher risk of endometriosis, have a higher risk of miscarriage and preterm birth, have a whole host of problems as they grow up. So whatever you can do to bring yourself down to the lowest is your goal. So the first thing that I recommend is cut down the number of products, period, end. Just stop using them. You don't need to put, fancy things in your hair. You can have limpy hair like mine and not care.
Your hair looks great. I'm like, let me do what she's doing.
Go to like the one event per month, do your hair, go for it, right? It's a one-time event. It's not a daily exposure. You want to limit your daily exposure. You're going to go to a nice event. You want to look pretty. You're going to a wedding. You're going to an event. Get your hair done. Do the full 9 yards if it makes you feel beautiful. I want women to feel amazing. But our definition of what beautiful is also needs to be changed. Like, do we need all the lipstick and all the chemicals in our skin to be able to feel beautiful? Like, do we not feel beautiful just with our natural skin? Do we need to put all these products to make our skin look radiant and glycery and shimmery? Like, we don't need any of that, because guess what? Now you're infertile and now you're married and you want to have a baby and you can't, and you have 3 years trying to get pregnant and 6 cycles of failed IVF and you still don't have a baby and you're $120,000 in debt. That shimmery stuff on your skin has a direct impact on your ovaries and on the number of eggs you produce and on the inflammation in those eggs. And we've measured in the follicular fluid of those eggs these chemicals like phthalates and BPA. So phthalates are a big one. BPA or phenols is another one. Those include things like parabens and triclosans, this group or class of chemicals. When I tell you that they're produced in the millions and millions of tons per year, think about 1 ton and think about millions of tons. It could fill lakes worth of chemicals. So every one of us is exposing, and these industries are making trillions of dollars off of our bodies. So the big problem is that these companies are highly profitable and they find uses for these chemicals everywhere because it's a sales, right? They're trying to sell the use of these chemicals to people who are making mascara, people who are making nail polish. So those are 2 big classes. Those are short-lived chemicals. They go in and out of our bodies very quickly in 7 to 12 hours, but we're constantly exposed through our food and through our personal care products and through contact with plastics and water bottles and Tupperware and cooking utensils. So there's lots of tips that I could suggest, but we're talking about personal care products mostly today. So cutting down on the number of products and then cutting down the amount that you're putting. So put your lip gloss on 1 time before the meeting and then put it away and don't touch it again till tomorrow's meeting, which is what I'm going to do. I don't need to put it on 5 more times. So 1 time instead of 5, that's a win. Putting on makeup 1 time a week instead of 5, that's a win. Just cutting down the frequency and the amount is critical. And then swapping out your products, buying products that we know have a seal of approval, have these chemicals have been proofed out of the process of production in this product. And that's your next step. Last group of chemicals, I'm going to mention one more because they're really big. They're also in personal care products, but PFAS chemicals, perfluorinated chemicals, PFAS chemicals, they're everywhere. They're forever chemicals. The reason why we're so concerned about them, unlike phthalates and phenols and BPA and triclosan that go in and out of our bodies in 7 to 12 hours, PFAS chemicals stay in our bodies for 2 to 10 years. So we're stuck with them in our bodies. And so that requires a different type of strategy, but there's lots of sources of exposure in your kitchen and in your home that you could eliminate immediately to.
Yeah, where do those show up mostly?
So those ones show up in, well, food contact material is big. So anything that you package any of your packaged food in your fridge has it in. So when I get things that are packaged in my kitchen, I put it into a glass Tupperware and put it in the fridge because even though the production allows those chemicals to be absorbed, but sitting in the fridge for a week increases absorption and increases the amount of contamination of that product. Frying pans and anything in your kitchen that's made out of plastics and like stick proof, what is it called?
Non-stick.
Non-stick. Anything that's non-stick you don't want, because non-stick means it's coated with some type of product, chemical that makes it non-stick. And anything that's flame retardant, anything that you could put that allows it to be in contact with heat that's not metal or wood or glass.
Oh my God, buying furniture is impossible these days because of that.
What about silicone?
So I'm not a big fan of silicone either because it's not necessarily, there are brands that have probably pure silicone, but it's mixed with color, it's mixed with phthalates, it's mixed with a whole bunch of other stuff to make it that pretty nice shape. It's not pure silicone. And so like, why would you cook your food in plastic? Just cook it in glass or cook it in stainless steel. It has the same result. It might just be a little different in terms of time and the way you prepare it, but no plastic should be in your kitchen, period, and in any way, shape, or form. And that's a big no-no in my kitchen. And the last area that you have control over, because that's what we're focusing on, the water that you drink each and every day out of your taps needs to be filtered with a reverse osmosis if you can afford one. And if you can't, there's other lesser expensive ones, but the price point in these products are coming down significantly. And your water is a major source of phthalates, PFAS, and all these other chemicals that we're talking about that we know have reproductive harm. So reduce the number of products, reduce the frequency of products, swap out your products, get rid of plastic in your kitchen and filter your water. Don't use any fragrance in your home, not in your shampoos, not in your personal soaps, not in your dish soap, not in your detergent that you use in your laundry room. And don't use any Febreze or any kind of cleaning solutions that have high odor and high scent in them, because when you're aerosoling your sink with the nice beautiful soap that's costly, it actually has a lot of chemicals that you breathe into your lungs that is a source of exposure. So any kind of cleaning solutions, any kind of cleaning products you should swap out, or just use baking soda, lemon, other forms of cleaning.
And you mentioned you take let's say you have strawberries, they come in a plastic container, you take them out, you put them in a glass container. For people who are bathing their toddlers at home and the soap comes in a plastic container, should we be moving that into a glass container?
No, so I mean, you can if you want to be a purist. I don't believe in causing people more stress. Moms are already, I've got
Yeah.
2 sons and it's still stressful. So I don't think more work is ever in a mother's favor. You know, you got to be mindful. It doesn't materially change the fact that there is going to be some contamination, because to get that product into that bottle, regardless, it's going to go through tons of tubing, and all that tubing is PVC, and that tubing ends up contaminating the product. But you want to choose a product that when it's in there has no additional chemicals added into the formulation to produce that product. So I'd be less concerned about that. There's so many other things that you have control over. I wouldn't focus on that. Really important. The last thing I want to say is critical, because we're exposed to everything. Even someone like me that has every single piece of knowledge you could think of in this space, my body's exposed, my teenage sons are exposed, my dog, your pets are also exposed, by the way. Nutrition is your key. Nutrition and exercise is your key to protecting yourself. So you have these assaults, you have these exposures that are harmful to your eggs, to your sperm, to your baby. You have a tool. Your diet is your tool, is your protective, preventative tool. Exercise, fresh air, being outside, getting in contact with nature, all things that decrease your inflammation, increase all the things in your body that you want, and decrease all the things that you don't want, and mitigate the effects of these chemicals in the body. So we know that certain nutrients can actually block the effect of these chemicals harming your cells and causing the inflammation, causing the damage that we see. So eating healthy foods, non-processed foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, organic whenever you can, prepare things at home in non-stick pans, and
Yeah.
steel or cast iron. Eat good foods and eat as naturally as possible with as limited amount of takeout and processed foods as you possibly can, is your number one, beyond anything else, as a parent or a mother to be or a father to be, is your key to health and longevity, and making sure you remain fertile for as long as possible.
Was it a Harvard piece of research that came out recently about how anthocyanins can be really amazing for protecting reproductive health, like all the beautiful purple and red pigments that are in fruits and so forth. I feel like I read that recently. That was like some new groundbreaking research related to reproductive health.
I missed that, but thank you for alerting me. I will look it up, but I want to just put in a little plug in for you, Jenna, because I do believe in like the importance of nature and the potency of things that are naturally occurring in our environment and how healing those are, including the sun. So I'm exposed to the sun every day for hours a day. I don't use sunscreen. I probably have premature aging, but I am 50 years old and I do have pretty okay skin. And I'm outside every single day because the benefits of the sun, the benefits of botanicals, the benefits of being outside around plants and trees and fruits and
For our
vegetables.
emotional health too, I believe so strongly.
Yes, connecting with nature grounds you and allows you to have alignment, mental, physical, social, and spiritual alignment. And so to me, being as much exposed to natural things is, even animals in the wild, et cetera, are healing and good
For
for
our
you.
microbiome too, to touch animals.
Exactly. And the fruits and vegetables and the botanicals have microbiome, actually balance your microbiome. So I'm a big fan for all that kind of other stuff, besides getting rid of the toxic stuff. Boost up as much as possible all the stuff that you have access to each and every day that's pretty much free. Sitting outside on the ground for an hour is free.
Free. Yeah. Okay.
My little 4-year-old so intuitive. When she was little, we used to walk, we were right next to this big, fabulous, beautiful park in Charleston. And she would always tell me to take off my shoes and put my feet in the grass and just kind of lay in the earth. So we should definitely listen to our children.
Yeah, and she definitely likes something you're doing right because someone taught her that. Um, Someone asked Carmen, reverse osmosis filtered water would remove minerals, right?
True, and you could remineralize the water. You could a lot of the companies, almost every single one that I'm familiar with, has a remineralization system that you would add in, like a filter that the water goes through at the end that actually remineralizes water, and a balanced with you want a little more alkaline the water, and so you want to be able to re-add those in, because it eliminates almost everything out of your water, which is great, but you do need some mineral balance. And so I know my dog, before I added the mineral balance, even my dog refused to drink the water out of the reverse osmosis because it didn't taste the same. There was no minerals in it. So yeah, it's important to consider that if you're concerned about mineral
So
loss.
maybe we'll also follow up with a few filters that you recommend or systems in the DM. Jenna, I heard you bring up furniture.
Mm.
Where were you going with that?
I've just been trying to buy a couch for so long, and my sister actually was the one who went down this like 3-year rabbit hole trying to buy a couch for her family. And especially when you have children, you want to find a balance between a really like resilient, durable fabric, and so they always want to steer you towards these coated fabrics that are spill proof. And I mean, I'm looking at my couch right now, and I've washed the cushions many times, and there is like, my child's 4 now, but I'm sure there's like deep breast milk residue in there, and ketchup and whatever else. But it's from the fabrics to the foam to the glues. It's really, really challenging to find furniture that is made, that isn't a gazillion dollars, or like, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, great vintage options. But it's just really hard. I mean, the sort of option that we looked into was mohair, which I guess is a very resilient material. And it's all natural and doesn't off gas. Like even just things like when you're repainting your house, it's a little bit more expensive, but so worth it to choose paints that are no VOC. So it goes just back to me feeling really frustrated, and feeling that it's really unfair that so many brands, and there's such a great example of this kind of in the food system. That's kind of really where I started. And it's like, why are so many well-made things expensive, and so many cheap things cheap? And it's also really because of how our governments subsidize these things, and lobby, like the lobbyists behind certain chemicals. And so we have a lot of work to do as humanity, as an industry, to kind of recalibrate these systems and these industrial processes to actually recognize that there are much more long-term, equitable, sustainable, and viable solutions in all of these industries. So that's a little sidebar, but
Landon,
I was just about to, sorry, I was about to say, I think when you're approaching this lifestyle shift, usually it's when you're going through, a fertility journey, or you're recently pregnant, or, maybe you had a cancer in your family and you're really kind of motivated to make these changes. It's extremely overwhelming. And I think, to Carmen's point, and it's expensive, to Jenna's point, like it is a massive commitment.
But we also know, I'm so sorry, I'm interrupting. This is kind of where I wanted to go with this, is that we know that if we invest in ourselves and our families, and as a, the United States of America or whatever, into early prevention, the later cost is going to mitigate the initial cost, because what we pay in healthcare, insurance, etc., to resolve the mistakes of our past is so highly expensive. So sometimes it can be hard to see the trees through the forest, or whatever it is. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're right. I think it's an investment from a mindset shift too. But I think, to Carmen's earlier point, thinking about lesser products in general.
Right.
So maybe instead of, your
Right.
12-step skincare routine. You've moved it into 3 products that are maybe a little bit more expensive, but probably the total cost ends up being less than your
Yeah.
previous routine.
And
Maybe
maybe it's
you're,
filler free and then you're
yeah,
not needing as much because
you're
you're
spending, you're investing in these higher quality, safer products for personal care, but then you're choosing to make your own vinegar-based cleaning solution and saving money there. You're swapping out your 5 stainless or nonstick pans and you're investing in a $25 cast iron pan that can do, pretty much anything you want to cook. So I think it's really thinking about ways to approach this shift that feels accessible and trying to do it in a way that's not so overwhelming. For me, a big part of this and a part of our kind of ethos at Threat is not having this fear-mongering mentality. I think we are so spammed with that on social media. It's like sometimes I see these posts and I like hold my breath. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared for this world that we live in." And that kind of almost puts you in like you're frozen in that like
yeah.
analysis paralysis mentality. So really just taking it step by step, day by day, can you make a better choice?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
Oh,
that.
go ahead, Carmen.
No, I love what Lanning said, because it resonates with me, this fear mongering. I don't want any mothers or any future mothers or women feeling more afraid of what's beautiful, what's right, what's good, what's perfect for themselves or for their children. I mean, the standards that we've set for ourselves are non-viable, I think. And like, why do we all have to have the exact same perfect Botox faces? Like, can we just
Well, the
be
whole dysmorphia thing is a whole nother can of worms.
so I'm just saying let's let go of all these standards of what's good and what's bad and stop putting so much pressure on women on how they need to behave or what they need to do to be healthy. We have all the tools inside of us to make our families healthy. We have access to things in our environment, each and every one of us do, to enhance our well-being and our health. And it starts from the inside and moves outward. And so grounding yourself and not feeling that messaging, that fear messaging that makes you want to buy stuff and do stuff. The number of things that we purchase needs to go down. We have too many things in our homes. You don't need 600 sets of Tupperware and 5 sets of, dishes and pots and pans and spatulas. Like, I have one of everything and I don't replace until it's broken or damaged. And when it is, I get another one. I don't shop, and I don't even go shopping. I don't think I need things. And so I recycle and reuse everything in my home until it's gone. I think that's a very different mentality than trying to swap everything out every time. Like, do you need to swap it out or can you go without it? Can you use less of it? Furniture is something I want to touch on really quickly, and household things in general, because this is a major source of exposure to not just the food that we eat and the water that we drink and the products we put in our body, but our built-in environment, the chairs. Like, I'm sitting on this really nice cushion right now, and I'm 100% sure. I think I got it from Serena Lilly. I'm sure it's toxic, but I like the chair and I fell for it. My point is that it's really hard to find products, and the reason why it's dangerous is that foam is covered with flame retardants, because there's a certain from a California claim from like 30 years ago that insisted that certain products that are flammable have to have flame retardants in them. So lots of foam has flame retardants in it, has phthalates in it, formaldehydes, glues, carpeting, waterproof carpeting.
Yeah, someone just wrote in, I'm having this dilemma while looking for a living room rug. My son is about to start crawling and his mouth is on everything, but also needs something easy to clean, not crazy expensive, won't show dirt.
Yes, yes, and yes. So guess what? Get yourself a nice cotton rug, put it in the wash 25 times. It might just be a $50 rug from an organic sourced place that's loomed, and replace it after a year and a half when your child's vomited on it 600 times. Trust me, the expensive rugs end up just as dirty and in the garbage, even though you spent $1,000 for them. So cotton, organic cotton, linens, anything that's natural fiber. It doesn't mean that it's pure, but it's better than synthetic products that have coated with PFAS in them and coated with chemicals in it to make it have that special, like sunbrella, for example. Why can it be outside for like 12 months and get rained on and snowed on? It's because it's coated with stuff and your foot's on it, you know, and you're sitting on it or you're sleeping on it or you're lying on the, you know, the cushions on your sofa outside. There's so many places where that happens. You can't eliminate everything, but if you're going to buy new things, have the mindset that, do you need it? Is there other alternatives that you could think of that may not be as fancy and as beautiful, but might still serve the need that you need right now with your child being on the floor, crawling? Carpeting, flooring, big sources of exposure, paints, big sources, mattresses. In my groups on V, I run these weekly sessions, and the kinds of questions that I've had to produce answers for is like, people want to swap out their mattresses. Mattresses are a major source of exposure to a whole host of chemicals that we know cause thyroid disease and hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's disease, inflammation, reduction in production, being an underlying cause of not only infertility, but also pregnancy loss and infertility in men. So, you know, lying on your sofa for 8 hours a night, you're absorbing a whole host of chemicals. And so there are brands that I recommend. I produce like a safer mattress, you know, plan and why that's important. What are the brands that I recommend that I think have good reliability in terms of, just like Lanning has with her company. I know that they've made these products in a way that is as safe as possible with the production that they use. And there's other companies that are like that. So looking for those, they are expensive. I hope the price tag comes down. Yeah, just buy less, do with less is the first step, and replace things as needed and choose safer alternatives that are more holistic, like your PVC shower liner. We've done tests on this, so you're showering with hot water, it goes on the shower liner and you're breathing in PVC air, which is actually phthalate. So, you know, putting an organic cotton one, it gets moldy, it gets gross, you got to replace it after a while. It's true, it's not the same. It does, you know, it does absorb water and it doesn't eliminate the water as easily. But at the end of the day, it's either you know, have a little discoloration in your shower curtain, or you have you know, PFAS shower curtain. So these are ways that you can choose better alternatives if you can. And they're good even on Amazon. You know, you could find products on Amazon. My bed sheets are from Amazon. They were dirt cheap. They're organic cotton. They're made in California, and they work great, and they weren't expensive, and they're organic cotton. So I feel better than putting something that might be fancy from Pottery Barn, but might be, you know, having chemicals in the production line that I'm not.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think I want to end on this last question, which is sunscreen, because you brought that up, Carmen. You don't wear sunscreen. I, you know, hear that's the opposite of what I'm hearing day to day, right, from a dermatologist or whoever. So if people did want to wear sunscreen, like I have melanoma in my family on both sides, Landon, can you give us some recommendations for sunscreen we can trust, both for ourselves, but also our kids?
Yeah. So, yes. So we work with brands who have mineral-based sunscreen, and you'll see that used a lot in marketing terminology. And so really understanding the different types of mineral, whether it's zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, and then avoiding any sort of chemical sunscreens that come into play. So yeah, I would look under the actives to make sure that it says the zinc there, and then avoiding any sort of chemical sunscreen.
Okay.
Oxybenzone, benzophenone, those are the two main ones that you see in a lot of the products, like copper tone and that type of thing. One of my hints is for the sun exposure, because I do agree with you. If you're a high risk person and you have history, you're in a different category. You know, you got to use your own judgment, your own intuition on your body. But my rule of thumb is, which really is a pet peeve of mine, I go outside, go to the pool, go to the beach, and I see mothers spreading sunscreen all over their children, and the UV index is 3. You don't need a UV blocker when the UV index is 3 or 4 or 5, probably not even at 6. I'd say 6 and more, use your judgment, but 6 and less, you're not going to get a sunburn if you're sitting out there with a UV index of 3 and you're causing your child to be, or yourself to be, exposed to a high concentration of these chemicals in your body when you put that on. We've measured the major change in concentration in these urinary metabolites before and after use of products. And it's a spike.
Yeah.
If you keep doing that every day, you're at a high level. So, and then your child gets, has a higher risk of allergies and asthma and infections and a whole host of things that you don't want in your child. So you don't need to put sunscreen on. Check the UV index, use good judgment. If the UV index is low, absorb the vitamin D, absorb the sunlight and the UV rays that are actually healing and protective to your health. You need that to be absorbed into your skin. And even if you're outside all day, you're not even getting enough vitamin D from doing that. So please expose your skin to outside vitamin D and sunlight when the UV index is not high. And when it is
Don't
high,
want to expose your face for, reasons of vanity, which is fine. Would you agree the torso, legs all actually can absorb so much more? So you can, give yourself 20 minutes of torso and leg absorption, and then just wear a big hat.
yeah, because I wear like a Harvard hat I run every day and I'm outside for a couple hours a day. So I wear a hat for sure, wear sunglasses. You could protect your skin around your eyes if you want, or around your face for sure if you're concerned. But you don't need to slather it all over your arms because it takes a long time to burn your legs if you've noticed, right?
Great. You're making me feel so much better about all the times I've forgotten to put sunscreen on my kid. So thank you. Great.
So
Thank you so much, Lannon, Jenna, Carmen. I feel less overwhelmed and more empowered to tackle these things. So thank you so much. And for everyone who tuned in, you'll get the recording in your DM. We'll also follow up with a few of the things that I mentioned, including the filter, and then Lannon, maybe some of those apps that you were recommending. And you'll be better for it. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. And we'll also include where you can find these women in the DM as well.
Thank you so much for having us.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
You
Thank
too.
Bye,
you.
everyone. Head in the sun.